Hello, you're watching James. My name's James, you're watching me, and I'm talking about watches. Now, are you like me? Are you a watch enthusiast that pretty much concentrates mostly on dive watches? Most of my collection consists of dive watches. I do love them, I think they're fantastic. But they're not the only watch style that I like. I do like all the other different variations that we have available, but dive watches tend to be my primary watches that I like, that I buy, and that I own. However, today I'm going to talk about dress watches, and I want to see whether you maybe have a similar experience that I have with them. I particularly like them. I think they're quite a nice looking watch, although I don't have very many opportunities to wear a dress watch. And even when I do have an opportunity to dress up and put something like a dress watch on, I tend to go for one of my dive watches anyway. So the question I want to pose today is, if you're going to own a dress watch and you're in a similar circumstance to me where you're not really going to be wearing it that often, should you invest in something quite affordable, like this Orient Bambino, or should you spend a little bit more money, a little bit more luxury, get something a little bit more special, like a Swiss-made Junkers Bauhaus watch? Now, specifically, I'm not going to be talking so much about should you get an Orient or should you get a Junkers watch. I'm talking more about these price ranges. Now, the Orient is not the cheapest affordable dress watch you can buy, and the Junkers is certainly not the most expensive luxury watch that you can buy either. However, I think they are both good examples of good quality watches at a reasonable price range. So I'm going to flip the camera around now. I'm going to put these two side by side, and I'm going to explain to you which I think is actually a better watch for a situation like me where I don't wear it very often, especially not in a formal setting, and why I own both of these watches. So let's flip the camera around and let's check out these two dress style watches. So let's start off by talking about the packaging of these watches. Obviously, with a Orient Bambino being around 200 Australian dollars and the Junkers Bauhaus being around about 900 Australian dollars, you'd expect a difference in the packaging, and there definitely is. It's not considerable, and to be honest, it's not really the main feature of a watch anyway. You don't want to spend too much money on packaging. However, there is a difference. The Orient just comes in a basic box, and the watch then comes on this nice big pillow. Whereas the Junkers comes in a much more substantial box. It's still just a box, but it has some nice felt on the bottom. It has the nice inlay of that sort of metal Junkers logo there, which is actually quite nice. And inside here, we have the logo again. We have this nice sort of steel aluminium corrugation here, which is set to sort of reflect some of the Junkers aviation style history. So it's tying it into the brand a little bit more. And then the watch is just on this little piece of plastic here. So definitely when you look at the two side by side like this, the Junkers in this packaging does present better. So just on initial inspections of the watches, I have to say both of them are really nice. You know, you can obviously see that they are slightly different styles, one just being a more sort of a dress watch style, whereas the Junkers is definitely that Bauhaus style. But both of them I think look quite good, and obviously attracted me enough to buy both of these watches. What about the quality of the watches? I guess that's really going to be something that's really going to stand out when we talk about these sort of price differences. What are we getting for our money? So let's talk about the Orient first and what we get for our 200 Australian dollars. To be honest, I think it actually presents very well, and it's really good value money, this particular watch. But we're getting applied indices, we're getting these nice dolphin hands, nice slender second hand. We have a date complication, which is surrounded by that simple bit of printing. The case itself has a really nice profile, has a very simple brushing along the sides, some high polish around that bezel-less insert there, and on the rear of the watch we can see just a very basic sort of etched logo of Orient there. The leather band itself is actually reasonably good for this one. It's nothing too special, but it's quite sort of soft and squishy. They've got a bit of foam inside those two layers there. It's very comfortable on wrist. It's not a bad watch. I really do enjoy this one. So what about the Junkers, and what differences are we sort of getting here? Obviously it's a much more simple dial here, and that's part of that Bauhaus design, but it's executed very well. The printing on the dial is very well done. The date window also just has a simple printed surround. We do get that very nice 3D logo of Junkers there, which I really like on this dial. I think it really gives it something extra. The hands are very slender, very nice. The second hand, again, very simple. We do get a little bit of lume on this watch versus the Orient does not have any lume whatsoever. And it is done actually quite nicely. You'll see there's a tiny little bit in the hands and there's a couple of dots just surrounding the dial. When it comes to the actual case finishing itself, we've got all polished along the edges here. It's brushed surrounding the see-through case back there, and it's done really, really well. There's certainly a significant difference between this and the Orient. There's a little bit better quality, a little bit finer done, a little bit neater, a little bit tidier. And that see-through case back is very pleasant, very well executed, and you can see this nice Swiss ETA movement inside. So one of the bigger differences between the watches is the type of movement used. This is a Swiss ETA 2824 movement. It's a high beat movement. So obviously you're going to get that nice smoother ticking of the second hands, as you can see there. Whereas the Orient has an in-house Orient caliber movement. It's a good movement. However, it's a slower beat movement, as I'll show shortly on the time grapher. So let's show it on the time grapher to see the differences between both the vibrations and how well these are performing. So let's have a look at these figures of the Orient Bambino. You'll see it's vibrating at 21,600 vibrations per hour. The beat error is a little bit higher than I would have liked. It's still within reasonable ranges. However, it's nice to get that closer to the 0. Amplitude is definitely a little bit low on this particular model. That should be closer to 300, so that's not particularly ideal. And I do notice that the plus minus seconds rate per day does vary a little bit from slightly under to up to about plus 10 seconds per day. So let's see how that compares to the Junkers. So as you can hear straight away that this is vibrating at a much higher rate. It's vibrating at 28,800 vibrations per hour. The beat error is about the same as the Orient. The amplitude's a little bit better and it's running about -4, -5 seconds per day. It is worth keeping in mind though, that this watch is about 5 or 6 years old and it's probably getting close to being due for a service, whereas the Orient is less than 1 year old. So what else can we compare with these two watches? Well, both of them have push-pull crowns, so neither are screw-in. Both have about 30 meters of water resistance, and both are sort of comparable in sort of size and dimensions as well. So they have that similar sort of look on wrist. And here we have the Orient on my 6 3/4 inch wrist. It fits really nicely to wrist. It has quite a slim profile, so it fits and feels quite nice. And it's quite light, as per a lot of these sort of dress style watches. And having a very similar wrist experience is my Junkers watch. Again, it is also nice and thin and fits and conforms very nicely to my 6 3/4 inch wrist. So I think it really comes down to personal preference. What is the watch that you like better? How much do you want to spend? When you're looking at a lot more expensive watch like this Junkers, obviously it does have some better features and some better specifications than the Orient. It has that Swiss ETA movement. It's constructed in Germany. It has some nice features like that shield on the dial. It is a little bit neater, a little bit tidier. However, it is considerably more expensive than the Orient. The Orient, on the other hand, is a very affordable, very nice watch. It's very individual. It's not trying to copy any other watches either. It has this really lovely side profile and it wears very nicely. However, I do have to say that I end up wearing my Junkers watch a lot. I wear it very often. I really enjoy wearing this one. It's such a nice watch to wear and look at. The Orient I do certainly wear, but nowhere near as much. I'm not really sure if that's because the watch is worse than my Junkers. I think it's just more of my personal preference. But when we're considering price, when we're looking at the Junkers being 4 or 5 times more expensive than the Orient, I have to say I'm not really sure if it really deserves that price tag, especially when you compare it against the Orient. Or more, let me just say that perhaps this is worth the money that it is asking, and perhaps the Orient is just a very, very well priced watch, and you can't really complain about the value for money that you get from it. Well, thank you very much for watching the comparison of these two watches. I know it's not completely comparable when you put them side by side. They're slightly different styles, they're from different areas. But what I really wanted to show to you is a much more affordable dress watch versus a slightly more expensive, a little bit more luxurious dress watch, something that has a higher beat movement. So what are your thoughts? Do you think this one is overpriced, or do you think it's the right price? Do you think this one is underpriced, or do you think it's just super affordable? What are your guys' opinions? Love for you to leave one of those comments below. Love hearing from you all around the world and seeing what your thoughts are. Thank you so much for watching. I hope to see you again shortly in the next video.